Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. And then shortly after we break from the session itself, grab some lunch and chit chat and fellowship. Hopefully a few more folks show up.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right. So I'm not sure if you can see the questions from here, but you can also follow along in your book there. But just a couple reflective questions for you, right? When we're talking about reflection of true intentions, see the question there? Just keep in mind, how do you rigorously assess the alignment, right? That's one question there to ponder as we're going through the session itself today. Another question is how can the strategic incorporation of vulnerability, right? Keep that in mind. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Go ahead and sign in for me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How can the strategic incorporation of vulnerability in your leadership, right? In your leadership. So I want you to keep that, make that, first person for you as we are going through the course today. When we're talking about long-term legacy of authentic leadership, we want to make sure, how do you and how inspire others, right? So keep that first person in mind as we're going through the session itself. This is the Authentic Leadership in Values-Driven Organizations micro-learning session. This is who I am, retired Chief Master Sergeant from the United States Air Force, 30 years, multiple bases, multiple deployments. I am the founder and CEO of MVP Training Solutions. I am also an adjunct professor for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. I am a student mentor for the Community College of Southern Nevada. Also a master life coach, personality assessment evaluator, and also your newest member of the North Las Vegas City Veterans Community Commission Advisory Board. So I'm very proud of that. So if you have questions, concerns, issues that you'd like to share, we can bring up if we need to along the way. So how do veterans continue to benefit from courses in leadership? That was a question that was posed to me while I was at the gym. And in my best Chief Master Sergeant voice to another former or retired enlisted member, I had articulated it this way. I know that when veterans become veterans, they don't lose their strategic vision capability, right? It doesn't suddenly go away because you've received your retirement certificate, right? We know that you can envision and articulate long-term strategic goals, even after you've retired or became a veteran, right? We know that you remain an adaptive leader. We know that you can continue to lead in dynamic and complex environments. We know that you are still a systemic thinker, right? Your military training has provided that skill set for you. So we know that you can still identify and leverage points and drive systemic improvements within your organization. We also know culturally, we're talking about cultural intelligence here. I've been to many bases. You've probably been to more than that and different locations than I have. That makes you that much more culturally intelligent. That's why it's important to continue to do this type of course. Now, more specifically, how does a course in authentic leadership benefit you? Well, we know that authentic leadership knowledge itself helps you lead with your values, aligning your actions with your core beliefs. That is your strengthened personal integrity. We know that doing a class like this, you'll improve in your ability to manage your stress. navigate relationships, and build meaningful connections in both your personal and your professional lives. And when we're talking about empowering team development, you already know how to do that. We just want to support and strengthen that. And we do that by fostering open communication, being transparent, creating a supportive environment. That's why a course in authentic leadership is still relevant to your life as a veteran. So, this is an open facilitated discussion. What that means is, if there's distractions in the room, silence any distractions. Please remove the distractions if possible. Listen respectfully to your cohorts. Commit to learning something from the session itself. Share any stories that relate to the topic as it relates to making your point, right? Avoid any assumptions made about your cohorts. This is a flipped classroom, so basically what will happen is I'll talk about 25% of the time. The other 75% of the time, I'll be wanting to hear from you. How about that, right? So that's why it's very important. I was asked earlier about the student manual and things like that. So, but again, you've downloaded the document. So the questions that you see here are also the questions that will be in your student manual there. So the objectives for today is to understand the core principles of authentic leadership, recognize the importance of authentic leadership in today's workplace, and develop strategies to foster and employee engagement through authentic leadership. 3 objectives you see listed there. These are the topics we'll cover today, as you'll see there. We'll get into, follow-on questions and things like that, and then we'll talk about the certificate. So, I'm often asked the difference. What's the difference between this type of leadership and that type of leadership? One of the things, when we talk about authentic leadership centers on self-awareness. You have to be self-aware. Well, we know affiliative leadership focuses on creating collaborative space. We know that authentic leadership drives you to stay true to your personal values and your beliefs, whereas adaptive leadership requires you to be flexible and adaptive. Agile leadership prioritizes quick decision making. Authentic leadership values transparency in communication, whereas charismatic leadership relies on that personal charm to influence and inspire and motivate others along the way. Some key differences that you see there. Today's discussion is specifically about authentic leadership. So when you think of authentic leadership, what things come to mind to you, sir?
For me,
Yes, sir.
Being truthful, honesty, I try not to mince words. Try to communicate effectively. Where you communicate according to the person's level of, you have to make sure that your words would be understood. There's no ambiguity.
Right, yeah.
So
and not talking over their head,
right,
but understanding what their level is.
Precisely.
Right.
So they can repeat to you exactly. I usually ask, can you repeat what I just said?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So you have a way of having an acknowledgement that they understand what you want.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How about you, Jamar?
So authentic leadership, as we started.
What do you think that is? What does it look like to you? What it might not be?
For me, it looks like a lot of emotional intelligence. And so that's knowing myself, knowing my leadership style.
Yeah.
Transparency is huge.
Yes.
We're gonna be transparent with this thing. I think a little bit of flexibility there because sometimes my leadership style is not the way the team wants to be led.
Sure. Sure.
A subordinate picks the leadership style that they
Ah,
want. How they
right.
want. So transparency is huge.
Yeah.
It's also focused, I think it's vision focused.
Mm,
I think it's
yeah.
focused on
Yeah,
completion
sure.
of,
Mm-hmm.
completion of the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be honest.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
honest leadership.
Right. Good.
And so what it's not is, you can't be one thing, you can't say one thing and then be another
Mm.
person. You gotta be
Yeah.
that. You
Gotta be
You
consistent.
gotta be consistent. You
Yes,
know
sir.
what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
the team is doing well, the team is doing well. The team
Right.
is not being led down the right direction to understand that as well.
Right. Because in that scenario like that, the team could require training when they're doing bad
When they're doing
and when they're doing good.
exactly.
They still could require some training, right? So that's legit. So consistency is important. Consistently making sure that they're getting the training they need to complete the mission. Absolutely, yes, sir. Let's take a look collectively. So when we're talking about self-awareness, as you mentioned, when we're talking about self-awareness, you can look at it from the perspective of an authentic leader embraces self-awareness, understands strengths and weaknesses, and acts with integrity. Themselves and the weaknesses and strengths of others, right? An authentic leader does not withhold information or manipulate communication, right? We know an authentic leader demonstrates empathy, actively listens to others, and seeks to understand their perspective, right? We know that it's not one that exhibits inconsistencies, right, or hypocrisies in actions or their decisions. We know that an authentic leader takes responsibility for their actions and their decisions that they've made and holds themselves and others accountable. It is not one that relies on coercion or fear. Right? So some key differences highlighted there as to what authentic leadership is, or what an authentic leader is and or is not, highlighted there. So when we are talking about the overview of authentic leadership, what we're talking about is what authentic leadership emphasizes. Authentic leadership emphasizes the genuine self-discovery, right? Moral communication, and is at times kind of vulnerable, right? It fosters openness, trust, mentorship with team members while recognizing the human complexities of the organization, which is really a stark departure from the traditional top-down centric leadership-driven models of leadership. Self-awareness, you've heard that mentioned a few times. Self-awareness is an integral part of being a genuine, authentic leader because it enables the leader to align their values and their behaviors. It fosters congruence in the personal and professional spheres of the lives of that leader. Authentic leaders cultivate emotional intelligence, foster supportive work environments where individuals feel valued, heard, and understood. So this type of leadership really does extend beyond just self-reflection in that it includes being and building sincere relationships that's rooted in trust through the honest and open communication. So on the right-hand side, you see a list of some questions there, but we're going to bring that up a little bigger for you there.
Thank you.
So those are the three questions that you saw earlier, on the right side of the screen there earlier. I want you to keep in mind when you look at the questions, and I'll give you your choice to select the question that you'd like to answer. And just keep in mind, how might you How do you see yourself? How can you leverage? I want you to keep that first person focus in mind when addressing the questions. So take a look at that. And I'll give you a minute to look that over. Good, sir. Got your name.
Yeah, I think I did.
Just hang on. You got it, man. Tomorrow I'll get you to do the same thing. Or just hang on from the table there once you write your name. So we can call you by your name. No problem. So, Jay,
Yeah.
what question are you going to tackle for us today?
Probably, I think number one right there.
Okay.
How much you incorporate the principles of authentic leadership into
Yeah.
your own leadership style,
Yeah.
considering the emphasis of self-discovery and transparent ethical interactions as foundational elements. That's
Yes,
about
sir.
it. Well, it's a matter of being honest
Mm-hmm.
with yourself to begin with. You know, everybody makes mistakes, no one's perfect to begin with.
Sure.
Important thing is, you know exactly your values should coincide with what's right. You know,
Sure.
sometimes people have the subjective views on what is right, what is wrong, but generally speaking, you know,
Yes, sir.
based on what is accepted by society, what is legal. Basically, you have to form your leadership style based on what the goals are of your organization.
Yeah.
You know, you should coincide your leadership style with with those goals.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's gonna be different in their
Sure.
approach.
Yes, sir.
You know.
Yes, sir. So
But-
that's how you might incorporate authentic leadership principles, right?
Right.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
You bet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Moore, how about you, sir? Which question did you want to tackle?
I thought number 3.
Okay.
With self-awareness and emotional
Mm.
intelligence, to foster connections within your team.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do is I show vulnerability.
Okay.
I'm not a know-it-all.
Mm.
I go in and I bring all my subject matter experts in, and I let them know through answers and through things that I don't have all the answers. And
Mhm.
they have
Mhm.
the answers to provide to me.
Mm-hmm.
Gained a lot of respect from going through all the courses with my students, letting them know that although I'm the senior person in the command and I'm supposed to know all these things,
Right.
I still have a lot to learn.
Right.
Even after so long.
That's right.
Um, Second thing is probably showcasing my employees or showcasing my personnel.
Mm.
I award them, I praise them
Recognition.
in public, recognize
Yeah.
their work, and so they understand that one of the most important things is that I'm not taking credit for all the work that they're doing, and they're getting properly either compensated or recognized for what they're doing. All failures within the team, as that leader, as that Agile leader, as that Marine Corps leader, all the failures is my responsibility.
Right.
That's because of a shortfall I did,
Mm.
or I failed to recognize. So even though the team might not reach a goal, they're never going to know that I'm never going to go in and throw them under the bus, so to speak.
Right,
I'm gonna say,
right.
"We missed because of this.
Right,
It's totally
right.
my responsibility."
Sure. Yeah.
But emotional intelligence is a
Yeah,
huge thing.
huge.
When you understand yourself, then you'll understand how to lead.
Yeah.
Lead people. Does that make
Excellent. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. So if we look at question 1, right, like Mr. J mentioned, we can reflect on our core values. Right? We can always practice transparent communication. Right? If they're not sure, let's make sure they understand before we move forward. We can always build on ethical relationships. right? And then leading by example. The reason why I'm not going to cut any corners is because I don't want to see you cutting corners. We're going to do it the first time, right? Measure twice, cut how many times? Just once, right?
Could you elaborate on building on ethical relationships? Because I see a lot of times where there's a lot of favoritism and cliques within organizations. And I can recognize it, but overcoming those things is overcoming building an ethical relationship or addressing that ethical relationship seems to be, we can all identify problems. Not everyone can identify a solution to it.
That can lead to friction with
absolutely.
within the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see favoritism.
Yeah.
Good point.
And an ethical leader is a leader that's authentic will be a leader that practices consistency. Consistency in addressing ethical issues within the organization. Absolutely. Again, I'm going to tell you this is the way we need to do it. And I'm going to tell the exact same thing to the next person. This is how it needs to be done. This is how we're going to do it. I'm not going to allow you to cut corners, right? Especially when we're talking about lives.
Right.
And I'm not going to let the next person cut corners. So an authentic leader is one that's going to articulate the ethical core values for the organization, which everybody should actually know. The core values for the organization. This is how we will operate in this community. And then accountability. Holding everybody to the same standards of ethical behaviors. It is tough to do.
It is extremely tough.
It is tough to do, especially when your peers are the ones not demonstrating ethical behaviors. It's hard, right? It's easy to jump on the subordinate, the employee, right? It's easy to do that, but when you witness your peer or your superior demonstrating unethical behaviors, an authentic leader will be as consistent with the employee as their peer, as their superior in addressing ethical issues. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I got my workbook over here.
Yeah. That's all good.
I can read it.
Yeah. So when we look at question number 2, right, we're talking about integrating personal principles into your work, right? You can align your actions with the personal principles. You can encourage the open dialogue among your team members, which a lot of times get left behind because we just assume, well, we all work here, we all know each other. Well, the problem is the HR people might not know the logistics people. We all show up to the same building, but I might not know you. And I may not share the same level of detail of information with you as I would another HR person. Well, we need to encourage open dialogue between team members and foster a culture of trust and respect. I'm telling you this because I trust that you will take this information and utilize it the way it's supposed to be utilized. Not as a weapon against me or someone else, right? You have to foster a culture of trust and respect. And an authentic leader can do that over time. Because people want to trust that person. We've all seen people who are well trusted and respected in the organization. How did they get there? Right? It can be done. And when we're looking at leveraging self-awareness and emotional intelligence, some things that you touched on that question 3 there, right? Being mindful of your emotions. Oh man.
Oh man.
You know,
It can get you.
sometimes they can get you, right? Just being mindful of your actions, right? Actively listening to your team members. I hear what you're saying. Now I understand better because I have suspended my judgment, if you will, about the results, because now I'm tuning in to really listen to what you're saying, and I have a better understanding of the situation, right? Acknowledging individual contributions and strengths, just like you mentioned, Jamor. I will celebrate the wins of my people. That's what you have to do, right? You have to let them know when they messed up,
Yes.
but you can do that in private.
Right.
You can publicly celebrate their accomplishments and or accomplishments to the mission, and achievements and or results of their actions publicly. So, spot on there, thank you. So when we look at the importance of authentic leadership in today's context, when we're talking about modern workplace dynamics, we know that they are always rapidly changing, right? Because it may be an introduction of new technology, right? Maybe an introduction of new leadership, right? New employees may come and go. Increased cooperation and the remote work. Sometimes somebody may show up to the office that you've never seen before. Well, they've been with the company for 25 years, right? Because we know that the modern day workplace is ever evolving. So to be an effective leader, let me say it that way, you have to understand the impact and how it impacts flexibility. Flexible scheduling with the teams, the team dynamics, the company culture, as well as the traditional notions of workplace and the hierarchical support for things like innovation, diversity, and the evolving workforce demands really require the leader to be super adaptable, right? Globalization. Y'all heard the term globalization before? Yeah, globalization. It's a really big term, especially for people like me. I'm in the supply chain industry, and that's what I teach as well. But globalization, in a nutshell, is that really increased interconnectability, interdependence among the various societies worldwide. That interconnectedness, right? It involved the integration of markets, technologies, policies, politics, and various cultures. When we talk about globalization, right? And it is really the engine behind things like transportation, communication, and the new technologies that we are always inundated with in order to facilitate things like the movements of our goods. What happened last week with the movement of our goods?
The port ship.
The port. That's part of the globalization issues that happen, right? So keep that in mind, because that affects capital, that affects relationships, that affects information, and that affects people across, not just in the other office, but in the other country, our people in the other countries that we support. So it is safe to assume that globalization has really transformed the landscape of leadership, because it requires the leaders to navigate those complex international networks and adapt their strategies for the global context, not just the local or the regional or the national, but the international context, right? So as the workforce itself evolves, employees' expectations extend beyond just, I'm here for a paycheck, right? It extends beyond that to include opportunities for career advancement and positive work environments. We know people don't leave their job, they leave that supervisor. Right? We know our airmen don't leave the Air Force, they leave in that supervisor or that first sergeant or that commander or that flight commander or that superintendent or that chief enlisted manager. We know that our military members aren't signed up for the military for the paycheck. If there were, they'd be beating down the doors to get in. They're not. They're in there for a lot of other reasons, such as the possibility of doing something bigger and better than what their life looked like prior. Right? Organizational cultures are ongoing paradigm shift driven ultimately by a strong sense of purpose, inclusion, and agility, heavily influenced by the leaders who prioritize values such as openness, sincerity, and moral behavior. A strong sense of purpose. That's what's going to drive an authentic leader. So when we're looking at the three questions that we have, how do you envision, how might you develop and leverage, and how can you, as a leader, create an organizational environment like that? What are your thoughts on that? Which question would you like, Mr. J?
Let me see here.
I'll give you a minute. It's okay. Yeah, you're good. I'll give you a minute.
I'll probably go for number 3. Reflecting on the evolving expectations of employees, how can you as a leader create an organizational environment that prioritizes not only financial compensation,
What you think?
but also meaningful work profession? Well, usually employees stay in the organization.
Is that you're going for question?
Number 3.
Number 3? Okay.
Yeah, so in my experience, employees stay in the organization
Yeah.
when they're happy in
Yeah.
their workplace.
Yeah.
When they find, the culture is such that the workplace is fair. There's no discrimination, stuff like that. So basically, you create a happy environment, happy
Sure,
work
sure.
environment when you have happy employees.
Sure.
There's gonna be bad days, of course. There's
Yeah.
gonna be rainy days and all that.
Sure.
But the type of leadership that you have to show is that you should be aware that all things are not permanent. You have good days, bad days, and all that. But you just focus on what is helpful at that time when things are really in dire straits.
Sure.
Focus on something positive. Because that is sometimes contagious. Even negativity is very contagious.
Yes, sir.
But if you focus on something positive, maybe
Yeah.
develop a sense of humor, sometimes employees would rally
Yeah.
to accomplish whatever